So I'm Sam Barker, I'm VP of Telecoms Market Research at Juniper Research. We cover telecoms and connectivity. What I'm going to speak to today is about where AI is for core networks in the UK and where it's headed in the country, what needs to happen, where the technology is, and our predictions for the market. So before we get started, I think the best thing to do is start with where we are today. I think it's probably very important to note that when it comes to AI, it's actually very widespread. I think there's a very broad definition of what AI is, but it can be summed up in a single word, which is automation. Implementing AI to automate various network functions or data center functions for efficiency reasons or cost saving reasons. But as AI has evolved over the last few years, what we're looking at is different iterations of AI doing different things, and within those different iterations of AI, we're obviously looking at more granular, more focused services that are based on AI to achieve a specific function. But the growth of AI in networks, there are a few caveats to how widespread it is. Obviously, first of all, talk about the level of access given to sort of network functions or data center functions. There obviously needs to be a lot of trust when it comes to automation, and obviously there are many variables when it comes to the different types, different companies, different networks, different data centers, different functions. So it really can be taken on a case-by-case basis by different industries and how good the AI model is at achieving whatever goal it needs to achieve. The other side is obviously the areas of where the network is or what the data center is. So if you take an example of network traffic running through a data center, if the traffic, the packets, the data packets are not what can be determined as mission critical, then AI might be given more access to try and improve the efficiency of how those data packets are being transferred. And then if that data traffic is mission critical, it may need more manual handling, more manual routing for the time being, until more and more trust is given to AI. And obviously, as mentioned before, the actual AI model that is used, and what we're seeing now with AI for core network in general and for core networks, is that different AI models are being used for very specific functions. And the way the market's developed now is we have, in general, a very small number of AI vendors. From Juniper Research's point of view, quite a lot of people who consider themselves AI vendors are essentially AI resellers that are using another company's AI model to create maybe their own agent or their own bespoke AI service. So the impact of AI is very much dependent on the level of access that it's given, and we expect, as AI to become more trusted amongst enterprises for various use cases, then it's going to grow. There's not this idea of AI is going to be used, adopted very, very quickly. It's a case of it, many enterprises have already adopted it, but AI is improving and AI has been given more access to networks and data centers. And over the next 5 years, we expect that to increase to the point where more and more of a network is automated. More and more of a data center, more and more data center functions are automated in the name of cost and cost savings and efficiency gains. And additionally, obviously, we talk about AI models. They're very much becoming more and more fragmented. You're seeing AI models for very specific purposes and different use cases, and the ability to create your own AI agent these days is very, very easy. And we're expecting a massive proliferation in the number of AI agents that are being used. So let's just talk about where the role is today. So first of all, there is a rising demand for some connectivity amongst both consumers and enterprises. There are a lot of figures out there that I've personally seen about the energy usage for data centers and networks, and in the next 5 years, it could the energy consumed by networks and data centers can constitute a large proportion of all energy consumed globally, and it's the same for the UK. We're in a position where we do have a large number of data centers. Our network infrastructure is very good compared to other countries in the world. So there's obviously been more emphasis for not just operators, but data center operators as well on deploying AI. However, I do realise that is a very broad statement in itself, deploying AI. As I mentioned before, with the different iterations of AI and the different models that can be used, it has moved beyond a buzzword. Now, the last year especially, what we're looking, Juniper Research as an analyst house, is we are looking for quantifiable information, specifically on return on investment. The cost of AI is dropping dramatically, which is making securing a return on investment more achievable for many operators, many data centers. Today, from our point of view, AI is, we need to start quantifying that impact rather than using it as a sort of a marketing buzzword. But optimization sort of remains the key benefits. What I've done there is I've sort of just had a look at not just the core of the network, but the RAN, the radio access network side of things, and looking at that, there are the infographic to the right. You can already see the how a network operator can optimize various elements of the core network as well as the RAN. The key one there is the increased efficiency. It's all about optimization, lowering the operating costs, lowering the total cost of ownership on one side, and then the other side is obviously creating new services that are dependent on AI within a core network or a data center. So it's quite a broad statement. As I said, AI in general has sort of a potential impact across many different ways, and I'll discuss it later in the presentation. But the AI is so prevalent and so pervasive today within technology that really, as an analyst house, we find it very difficult to make predictions on what the AI can do and what the benefits will be in 5 years, because to be honest, we don't know how AI is going to be used. Whatever you can automate will be automated, trust being the main hindrance to how it's deployed. So just focusing on the total cost of ownership now. Obviously, from Juniper Research's point of view, what we're hearing in the market, that obviously reducing the total cost of ownership is sort of the key driver. It's essentially about making a core network smarter. With sort of this increased demand for connectivity and data, we do understand that in some countries, actually, the demand per mobile subscriber is, or demand per user, should I say, is slowing in terms of growth or even declining. But from an enterprise point of view, what we're seeing is more and more companies adopting services that need networks and need data centers. And what we expect to happen over the next 5 years is more and more of data that is being used in the core network, or more services that are located within core networks are going to be used by enterprises for various reasons. So as that grows and the cost of ownership becomes more impactful on how profitable a network owner or a data center owner can be, cost reductions will play a very much a substantial role. Tangentially, energy costs in the UK obviously have been rising quite significantly over the past few years, and then cost reduction in energy used within data centers and networks, reducing that is very important, and that can be enabled by AI through automation. So shutting down parts of a network or a data center when it's not in use, or when there is low demand for a particular service or solution, AI can reduce power or completely cut off power to a certain point. The different areas such as frequency scaling, sleep modes for low traffic periods, they're all sort of optimizing resource for for these areas. But it's not just about the real-time impact of real-time reaction to changing network conditions or changing demand for networks and data centers, but also being a bit more proactive. So there are solutions, digital twins, which is a phrase that's been around for since several years now. With networks and many other different things becoming more complex, AI has almost become a necessity to be able to really get a return on investment into digital twins, given how many variables there can be. But being proactive means that if they are able to simulate a network, they can better simulate certain conditions. So it could be anything that, from a routine time of day change to a one-off event that will increase the power demand or the demand for networks and data center services for a short period of time. And AI in the core of a network is going to be essential to this. The other side is as these networks become more complex, we can talk about the rollouts of 5G over the last few years, as well as the I'm not going to use the word impending, but the upcoming sort of development of 6G and eventual rollout, probably starting around 2028, 2029. These networks will, the phrase that I keep hearing is AI native. The AI will essentially play a pivotal role. What we're seeing with 5G at the moment is 5G was developed without AI being that prevalent within the standards, and AI sort of being sat on top. But as networks evolve, AI is going to play a hugely important role in making sure the networks are as efficient as they possibly can be. Mainly down to cost reductions and sustainability and being operationally as efficient as possible. Now, one of the key terms we've noticed over the last sort of 18 months is agentic AI and to an extent AI agents. Now we sort of have noticed that in terms of how people perceive AI, 2 years ago, even 5 years ago, AI really was a buzzword. I'm sure we've all seen the reactions to just include AI. There is no rhyme or reason. It's just they want to say that a company wants to say that they want to have AI. Agentic AI sort of changed that landscape a little bit. There's much more defined use cases for agentic AI, which enable AI agents, and we see more of a clear roadmap as to how these are going to be put into the core of networks. So the difference between agentic AI and other iterations of AI is essentially that it's goal orientated. But importantly, agentic AI has the ability to change the environment in which it operates, which means that it can do a lot more than simple text or image generation or simple responses based off natural language processing. It very much can change a network as it sees fit. So they have the ability to automate decisions in real time, as I said, to avoid repeating myself too much. As networks become complex and there are more and more functions for a network, AI agents certainly have a huge role to play in future networks and data centers on a more granular scale. It means they can enable more decision making to be handed over and automated. But what we expect to see is, whilst agentic AI is the technology, the iteration of the technology that underpins many of these services, is AI agents. So agentic AI is as a singular is the technology. AI agents are the services and solutions that enable the automation of a particular one, and they're going to be very specialized. It's not going to be a case of there'll be one AI agent for a network or one AI agent for a particular network. What you'll see is multiple AI agents across a network. Could be hundreds, it could be thousands, doing very particular tools. So it could be in terms of billing, it could be customer interaction, it could be billing, it could be network resource management, and these need to sort of work together specifically. So if you were a network that is managing the throughput for a particular enterprise through maybe a private network or a managed network. That AI agent will be built specifically to handle the throughput for that and make sure that it can speak to all the other AI agents involved. They need to essentially talk to them. So agentic AI enables the creation of AI agents. But again, sort of the biggest limiting factor in these is the trust that people can, or enterprises or networks or data centers can put in each individual AI agent. So what we're going to see over the next few years is a very, not going to say slow, but a very purposeful and almost limited rollout of different AI agents as that trust builds. And as that trust builds, those AI agents will be built for more specific tasks. For example, customer management would probably be the first one for a network, and customer interaction, should I say. But as the technology is moving at such a fast pace, and this is in general with AI, is the frameworks and the policy are struggling to keep up somewhat. So what we're expecting as well is that as these roll out, we're going to see more frameworks from the UK government to and how much trust you can put in agentic AI. At what point do you stop that level of automation? That really is pie in the sky thinking at the moment to specifically what that will be, but we expect that in the next 2 or 3 years. Then quickly, we'll just talk about how AI is being used for network security. So networks are critical infrastructure, data centers are critical infrastructure. It's used by many different industries. One of the things I probably should note here, that when I think of how AI is going to impact networks and data centers, I tend to look at it from an enterprise point of view, not from the average consumer like myself. And machine learning is sort of playing this really important role in understanding traffic patterns and doing that. But again, this has been done for sort of a number of years over a network. But as these networks grow and are used more and more, fraud is a really important element. You take different industries. You might take retail, for example, even though it's a large industry with a lot of revenue and a lot of spend over networks. You can compare that to something like healthcare as well, where the information stored is sensitive. It can cause damage to brand reputation and direct and indirect financial losses as well. So having the most up-to-date security is one element, but we view fraud just in general as a cat and mouse game. As fraud becomes more, or if there's an opportunity for fraudulent players will exploit it. That gap, that hole in the security, will be plugged, and then fraudsters will move on. It might be a case of they move on to different tactics of fraud, but from the same source. And what AI has really done in the network security element, or the network security side, is it really has accelerated how quickly this evolution happens, because there's so much is automated and so much can be done quite quickly. Networks have become more proactive in threat detection and prevention for that, and that is important if you are to start attracting enterprises who are going to spend high amounts of money per enterprise or per business user on there. So what AI does is it not only automatically detects what is happening over a network rather than human intervention, it automatically detects potentially fraudulent traffic patterns, blocks it very quickly, something that before was very, very difficult to do. But more importantly, when it comes to the evolving fraud tactics, it can identify those fraudulent tactics much more quickly, more automated, which means that there's a faster response time and it reduces any losses. And AI is already sort of proving its return on investment in many different industries. But one of the things that I do want to talk about just very quickly on the security side is one of the things that I do think networks and data centers need to prepare for is quantum computing. Now, from Juniper research point of view, AI, very, very important, but and having such a disruptive impact on in so many different ways that technology operates, not just within networks and data centers. But we believe quantum computing or quantum networking is probably going to have an impact orders of magnitude bigger. It is so much more that the networks and data centers need to do to prepare for, quantum safe cryptography. So just like AI, as enterprises and networks and data centers adopt AI for fraud prevention, you're going to see fraudsters adopting AI for committing fraud, and it's going to be the same for quantum. I do think the UK really is a leader in development of quantum. I know AI gets the media headlines, but we're amongst the first to develop things like quantum key distribution, or first to announce that we are developing quantum key distribution. That's a solution that makes networks far more secure. And what we don't want to end up in is a day where fraudulent players or people who are trying to commit fraud have access to quantum computing capabilities that can crack traditional encryption, because that is a situation that will arise in the future, probably in the next 15 to 20 years, but it could have devastating impacts on businesses that are not quantum ready. But AI is going to help with that. So implementing AI in core networks in the UK today is going to help for simulating potential attacks from quantum vectors, and educating the market on how quantum computing can impact network security. And the other side is we don't think that quantum security will be the be all and end all essentially of security over networks and data centers in the future. There will always be a combination of traditional and quantum safe methods moving forward. So the other side, just very quickly, is obviously network maintenance. This is less along the reactive side of security, but more of the proactive side of maintenance. So obviously, I've mentioned very briefly digital twins and how that can work as networks. Have distributed more towards the edge of the network. It tends to be a cycle of networks becoming more distributed towards the core, and then networks becoming more distributed towards the edge, and we sort of flip-flop between the two. And the network maintenance is far more proactive. AI is automating that process. What I've got to the right there is just the spend in millions of dollars globally for the spend. As more and more connections join a network, or core networks become more complicated, having servers that are more powerful, throughput that is greater, AI is going to be needed to sort of automate that process. We're sort of in the position at the moment where almost real-time monitoring isn't enough. 10 years ago we were talking about real-time monitoring being the most important aspects, being able to identify and block traffic in real time. It's with AI, the high levels of automation mean that now we're talking about being so proactive that you can detect problems, not just security problems, but maintenance issues earlier, even before they occur. But I think sort of the main hindrance to the maintenance side of things is, with AI being such a novel and emerging tool, is if you are a network operator or a data center operator, do you have the right staff training? It is a very broad scope for AI. There is a lot it can do. We already know that today. But from a network perspective, it's almost an instance of this high levels of automation means that you won't ever be able to maximize the benefits because we won't know what they are. But just on the two sides, the reactive and the proactive side, I think they're going to come together to make networks more efficient, less downtime, better throughput, and essentially, at the end of the day, better customer service. And I'll just go to where AI networks is headed. So I've just got a quick prediction there to the right. So planning and deployment of networks are becoming more complex. Now, as we move sort of towards 6G, is one of the ones that's been described today as AI native. Standards are starting for 6G this year. And AI will play a huge role in the core of networks, distributing, monitoring traffic, detecting fraud. And overall, that is to make networks more appealing towards enterprises. What we saw with 5G was there was a big jump in throughput and latency for consumers, but in general, we were very happy with what we had. But with the enterprise sector growing for operators and data centers, 6G needs to be more geared towards those sorts of customers, and they can be much more demanding than the average consumer. So if they need to do that, then what we're expecting is these AI-driven networks, or these AI-native networks, to be more adept at making real-time changes to network conditions, providing throughput where needed, and serving a large number of industries that have very, very varied demands. And if that needs to happen, that we can't rely too much on hardware within the core of the network. We need to rely on well, we will rely on hardware, but that hardware needs to have AI included in it that can distribute and allocate resources as effectively and as quickly as possible. So in terms of not just that, but obviously the sort of the planning as well, the costs of implementing networks, especially towards the edge of the network, can be quite high, and that means that AI can also help with the planning for how these networks evolve, not just within the core of the network, but across the whole network. Means that with all the data that can be ingested from a network usage, operators can not just reduce their capital expenditure, but they will also reduce their operational expenditure in terms of day-to-day provision of connectivity. And obviously that means from physical locations to digital services as well. And the last one is we talk about automation. The other word that I probably haven't mentioned in the moment is how dynamic networks need to be moving forward as well. The ability to make changes to network conditions or to specific connections or specific areas of the network in very quick time is certainly something that AI can do. Now that would be based on the data that's fed into it. Yes, it's as I said, in sort of a prediction for the next 5 years is that whilst we do talk about AI, I think the next 5 years will be very much about talking about return on investment for the core of the networks, rather than just using it as a buzzword. I do think quite a lot of the media hype is on just AI in general is about the new services that can be created, rather than the cost savings or the energy savings that operators or network operators can benefit from. It's obviously less appealing. It's something that's less likely to be talked about, but I think that's where the real savings are. AI obviously is already being used and has been used for a number of years. I think what we're going to see is an acceleration in how AI is used to increase these, to better these cost savings and increase energy savings over the next 5 years. What I'll do now, I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll open the floor up to any questions that anybody may have.
Thank you, Sam. I did have one question, which was, why has agentic AI had such huge growth after the last 18 months compared to other iterations of AI?
Yeah, it is interesting. It's something we've noted. When we first heard about agentic AI, we were, as AI, just generally quite skeptical, but just because of the buzzwords. But with agentic AI, there seems to be a more defined use case for how they're going to be implemented. Also, quite a lot of how AI agents which use agentic AI are used, the creation of those is put in the hands of the enterprises themselves. So that means that the rapid adoption of how they're being used is growing. It allows enterprises to explore them as they see fit, rather than one technology, one platform that's just put in front of them and seems to be forgotten about. So yeah, I think it's driving AI in general, agentic AI.
Amazing. That seems to be the only question we've had so far. It's always one of these things. You never know how many audience questions you're going to get. If you do a really good job, you hope none. Yeah, thank you, Sam. Thank you for. Oh no, we just before you were about to leave, we did get one. Sam, you mentioned the ROI being 10 years. Is this a generic view, as ROI differs from country to country?
Yeah, it will differ from country to country. I think when it comes to ROI, it depends, because obviously with agentic AI or just AI in general, I think for some use cases, return on investment is already being achieved for the simpler use cases. But as it grows, yeah, ROI for some use cases could be up to 10 years, and it will vary by country. It all depends on the use case and how complex it is. I think the main hindrance to securing ROI within networks or core networks will be that I do think there are going to be mistakes, and there are going to be elements of automation that go horribly wrong and will cost enterprises a lot of money, and probably diminish the perceived value of agentic AI. But in general, I think within 10 years we'll be looking at agentic AI not as a sole technology, but just part of a core network.
Amazing. Thanks, Sam. I will now let you go.